Welcome to OSSB Inside and Out, a podcast about staff member and alumni experiences at the Ohio State School for the Blind. Each week, we interview someone from the Ohio State School for the Blind about their experiences. Now here's your host, Brendon Hamblin.
Welcome to this first episode of the OSSB Inside and Out podcast. Today, with me in studio, I've got Mrs. Carol Agler from the Ohio State School for the Blind. How are you today?
I am great.
That's good. I'm having a brain fart. So, you're still involved with the marching band that you helped create?
I created it.
Correct. My nerves are...
That's okay.
So, it's the first episode. It'll hopefully get better from here. Let's start at the beginning as to how you first heard about the school and got started.
Well, I was teaching at Marburn Academy, which was and still is a school for children with learning disabilities. And I taught K through 12. And I loved doing that. I taught music. But I was wanting something full-time. That was just half a day. And I'd been there 5 years. And my husband was looking for jobs for our son, who had just graduated from OU. And he was looking in on the state website. And he came across this job at the Ohio State School for the Blind, teaching music.
Cool.
And I thought, whoa, that sounds really neat. So I went to get an application, and Dr. Mazzoli happened to be in his office, and he sat down and asked me why I wanted to teach there. And I said it just seemed like it was just like teaching at Marburn, only with a twist. And that twist was the blindness. I'd never taught anyone blind before, but I had taught children with disabilities a lot. So I applied and was lucky enough to get the job.
And you did an amazing job from the time I started, which was 2004, till you retired.
Well, thank you. I love teaching at OSSB. It's been the best thing that ever happened.
Well, I loved attending OSSB, and ditto. Let's see.
Well, when I came into the job, it was just, they had restructured it so that I was teaching any and all music classes. There had been another teacher who taught the some of the multiple disability classes. But
right.
And there was no band program. I didn't know there had ever been a band program. So I taught K through 12. I had 2 high school choirs, junior high music, elementary music, and then private lessons in piano or whatever instrument anyone wanted to. And I also loved Appalachian dulcimers, so I brought that to OSSB, and we made Appalachian dulcimers.
Out of cardboard?
Yes. They were cardboard kits from Backyard Music, and so those became part of my music classes.
We used those many a times.
It changed my life. When I got one, it literally changed my life.
They're fun to play, and they don't take up a lot of lap space.
That's right.
Just hang them on the wall when you're done with them.
Exactly.
What are some memories that stand out from your time, or
one of the
teaching,
biggest,
or currently?
Yeah. Well, one of the largest or fondest memories I have is being on stage practicing for the winter concert, and this is my very first year teaching, and I had done, we were doing a musical about different cultures, celebrations for the holidays.
Right.
And we had a mariachi scene, and Jessica Culley, who was totally blind and had perfect pitch and was always making this balloon noise. She'd press her lips together and squeak them.
Mm-hmm.
And to this day, she calls me Squeaky Balloon. But that was her thing. Well, she was holding a plastic trumpet that I had bought. And Seal Pirano said to me, "Why are you using plastic trumpets when we've got real trumpets?" And I said, "What are you talking about?"
You didn't know about the instrument room in the current, or
I did not.
in the music room behind the stage, did you?
Yeah, the music room behind the stage used to be the band room before my time. Mr. Spangler had retired 13 years before I came, and they were, after he left, they didn't hire anybody to replace him, and they didn't. They used the room as a meeting room, so I just knew it as a meeting room. And Seal took me to the instrument closet and showed me all these real nice brass instruments, and I just went right to Dr. Mazzoli and Principal Jerry Markham, and I said, "We have to start a band program. We have to. Can you let me do this?" And they said, "Yes, go ahead." So I said, "It's going to cost money over the years if we start this." And they said, "No problem." So they backed me and always backed me. So I gave a trumpet, a real trumpet, to Jessica Cully. And she said, "Can I play it?" And I said, "Sure." So she blew into it. And I said, no, that's not the way. Make your balloon noise into it. And she did, and out came this high C, hard as heck to play, and she just got it first thing. And I said, "This is a sign. This is why we have to do this music program.
This is why we have these instruments. Let's put them to use."
Yes. So that was one of my fondest memories. Jessica Cully is the reason I started this music program. Another fond memory is I was teaching a class of students with multiple disabilities, and this one young lady came in late. She was, she was in Barb Frankenfield's class, which meant she was possibly in the youngest of the multiple disability classes, or maybe the second youngest. I've forgotten which. But she came in late, and she sat down, and as usual, I handed her the microphone, and she sang into the microphone as usual. And after class, I look out, and her mother is in the hallway crying. And it turned out this child didn't talk, and I didn't know that. And
wow!
And here she is singing on mic, and it turns out that a way to reach students with autism, I don't know if that's what she had, but it is through music. And
cool.
A great many, like something over 90% of people with autism have perfect pitch. And music just speaks to them. That's their language. So it turned out to be hers. And there were more occasions than that of students doing things in music classes that they'd never done. We had one student named Brian who only used one hand. If you gave him something to hold and a spoon to eat out of it with, he would let go of it and just use the spoon hand. He would never use both hands until we put him at a drum set, gave him 2 drumsticks, and
off
away he went.
Cool. Let's talk a little bit more about the only blind marching band in the world that we have. We've been to the 2010 Tournament of Roses Parade. You want to talk about that a little bit? Because I wasn't there.
Oh.
That was the year before I got into marching band.
Wow. Well, the Rose Parade was unbelievable. We were having band camp, and I got a phone call. This was in 2007, because we had a year and a half to raise the funds. But I got a phone call from someone who was trying to find groups to be in the Rose Parade of 2009.
Right.
Or 2010. We went there in 2009, but the parade was January 1st, 2010. And he said he just, on a whim, did a search for blind band, and up we popped. So he encouraged us to apply for the Rose Parade. And Jerry Markham was in the room when I got the phone call, and I turned around and said, well, this is a pie in the sky thing. And he said, do it. Just do it.
Right.
If you get it, the money will come in.
And
you
it did.
Can do it. So I went to the band members who we were in a Wednesday slump, as usual. That's always the tired day of band camp. And I told them about this phone call, and they said, yes, let's do it. Let's do it. And it picked everybody right up. And by golly, they worked as hard as they could. And we made great tapes, and we sent our tapes to our audition tapes and our application. And to our great surprise and delight, we were accepted. So we prepared. Mr. Kelly said, we better get some help from other band directors who've done this before.
Right.
Some advice. And he said, I don't need any advice. I can tell you, if we can march 4 miles, we can march the 5.5.
Right.
And so that's what we did. We had 32 members of the band, and we marched round and round the track all the way up through November, the end of November. And
I remember seeing pictures from those around the track practices.
And the daylight doesn't last that long.
Not in November.
That year, we had 2 practices a week instead of the usual one.
Right.
And we practiced well past our usual season. And we marched a mile around the track. And then the next time, 1.25 miles. And the next time, 1.5 miles. And so on until we got up to 4 miles by the end of November. And in December, it was just too cold to continue out on the track. And so we stopped the conditioning. But
could have done it around the in the building.
But it was
granted, you would have had to squeeze down for the doorways, but
and we also lost daylight.
Right. There is that, because November, December, you're limited.
It's a 2.5-hour parade. So we didn't have 2.5 hours of practice time. Even when a TV crew came out to film us, they had to line the fence of the track with cars with their headlights on so that they could film us, because it was dark out there light. And we didn't have any light.
And there is no light out there.
No. So it was an adventure, and Mr. Kelly was right. When it got time for the Rose Parade, we didn't have any problem marching the 2.5 miles. And only one student dropped out, with one marching assistant who begged to drop out too. And it turned out that, she dropped out within the last, I think, 0.75 miles, somewhere in there.
So they made it pretty much the whole way.
Yes. And it was really fun, because right at the end, there's a overpass that we have to march under.
Right.
And your sound just bounces right back at you. And it was just energizing to hear us at that point, almost at the end of the parade, sounding wonderful still. So
always love going through corridors playing.
Yeah.
Or really tall buildings on either side of you. It just bounces back at you.
We had, our drummers were especially worried about being able to go that distance, because those drums are heavy.
Right.
And Bria Gaucher was one of those drummers. She played snare. She was our lead snare player. And she was worried about carrying her drum that full length. And we had practiced that during our rehearsals on the track. Our marching assistants would take the drums for a while in order to give them relief for their back, or they would just drop out and catch us on another lap after they'd rested their back.
Makes sense.
Adrenaline is a wonderful drug.
Yes, it is.
We are marching down the road, just during the first mile, and I noticed that Mr. Kelly had us march right next to the drummers, where we had more control of the tempo and the song. So I was right next to Bria, and I noticed that these tears were coming down her cheeks, and I said, "Bria,
tears
are
of
you
pain?"
okay?" I didn't know, and she shook her head no, and I said, Are you in pain?" And she shook her head no. And I said, Do you need someone to take your drum? And she shook her head no. And
Must have been excitement.
Yeah, I remembered that Brendon had just been moved to tears at the band festival that we'd been in a couple of days earlier, when the applause was just thunderous, and the people were not only applauding but drumming their feet on the bleachers, and we had never experienced anything like that.
Right.
And Brendon was crying, and I said, "What's wrong, Brendon?" And he said, "Nothing's wrong. Don't you see, Mrs. Agler? That's for us." So I lost it.
Understandable.
Yeah.
I would have too.
So when Bria was crying and I couldn't figure out the reason, I said, "Are you crying because you're so moved?" And she shook her head, yes. Well, then I was crying too.
Tears all around.
Yeah. It was just something else to be in that 2.5 mile standing ovation. 2.5 hour standing ovation. 5.5 mile walk.
I was going to say, that didn't sound right, but...
Yeah. It was unbelievable. And when we finished, Sam Shepard came up to me and said, "Mrs. Agler, I could do this again." I said, "Well, let's go. I'm ready."
I can see Sam saying that.
It was surprising. We were all just astounded at what we accomplished.
We did good. And that was before my time, so... I was watching.
And they had given us the option of marching the first mile, which is called the TV mile.
Right.
And then
dropping out.
And I said, "You don't think we can do this, do you?" I said, "Oh, no, I don't mean that.
Let us prove you wrong."
I don't mean that. I said, "Do you have any other bands who get this opportunity to leave after the first mile?" "No." "Then
we don't want to be like them.
We're going to march the whole way like everybody else because we can." And we did.
Yes, we did. Let's see. Now, that was 2010. In 2011, we went out to Seattle, Washington.
And you were there, right?
I was there for that, yes. That was an amazing trip.
I agree.
That was the Lions Club International?
Yes, the Lions Club International Parade.
I thought so. Couldn't remember. It's been so many years ago. Marching assistants. What are they and what do they do? I mean, you and I both know, but
right.
The listeners who are listening right now have no clue.
I've seen on other videos that people who use marching assistants in other high school marching bands or college marching bands,
right?
They may call them ghost marchers.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And so sometimes they dress in the same uniform as the band. In our case, most of our marching assistants are adults, except when we went to the Rose Parade. And then we had a lot of marching assistants from Marvin Academy and also the Graham School. And there was a third school, junior high school, that was a Montessori school that gave us 3 excellent marching assistants, one of which stayed with us until he graduated high school, and we still miss Nick. He was just extraordinary.
Nick was a good guy.
Yeah. So I designed, we had to choose new uniforms because we had 32 members in the marching band, and we didn't have enough of our wool uniforms that had been given to us from Napoleon High School.
Right. They were donated. They were
old.
They were old. You could tell.
Yeah. And they were our colors, and they were sharp. We appreciated them. But we needed new uniforms for the Rose Parade, and we needed non-wool uniforms for Pasadena. So,
I'm glad we went with not wool.
Yeah. So I just looked through the band catalog, and there was this one style that I thought was real sharp. Our school colors were red, white, and blue, so I chose where the red, white, and blue went, and we ordered these uniforms, and they were so sharp. So,
They still are.
Yes, they still are. I still think they're just the best uniforms out there. So then I had to design something for the adults to wear, and we decided on the red jackets.
And black slacks.
Black slacks, white shirts, black silk tie. And the Lions Club wore the red jacket, so that worked out to be a perfect tie-in with them.
Right.
And so we've collected quite a few red jackets over the years, and we like to do the bling like the Lions Club do. And so everywhere we go, if there are lapel pins we can get, especially at the Lions Club International Parades, we can do that.
Right.
We can exchange them, and so some of us have quite a lot of bling on our jackets.
Quite a few of you have quite a lot of bling on your
Yes.
jackets. 2011. Was there anything? The next thing I think was 2015, the next big event that we did.
Yeah, we marched in a Michigan parade, which was pretty cool. But yes, the next big event actually was marching in the OSU game in 2013.
Right.
That was.
I think
huge.
I had so much adrenaline going. I don't remember. I vaguely remember being there. I don't know how, but adrenaline's a funny thing.
It is. It was incredible because it was like the Rose Parade all crammed into a stadium.
Right.
And we were told later that everybody, a lot of people at halftime go out and get food, and then they come back and watch the game.
Right.
But that wasn't the case. In this time, people stayed to watch us perform Ohio in Braille while the OSU band performed Script Ohio. And we do that very much like their drill.
Right.
We get in a coil, and then we uncoil and march up the side and over across the hash marks in the middle of the field.
Right.
And then we descend in groups of letters. The O comes down, spelled in Braille, and then the
Right.
H and the I and the O, and then our eye dotters come out and dot the I.
Well, half of the O comes down, and then the rest of it comes down to dot it.
Well, actually, we used to do it that one I dot came down,
Right.
and then the second I dot would be the I dotter. But we had 2 sousaphone players that year.
Right.
So why not have them both dot the I? So we just had a blank when the I was supposed to come down.
Right.
And then the final O comes down. And the coolest thing was the second drum major. They had the main drum major, and then they had the second drum major. Well, he led our group. And we just had to move into place onto the field at the same time as the OSU band moved into their block formation,
Right.
their spiral. And then we just had to wait while they played. We played with them the entire Larege with a bridge. And then we started the second Larege time through because
Right.
it takes them so long to march. So they
To
were done
uncoil.
with the OH before we got to start our uncoiling. And comments online were, hey, when are they going to move? What are they do? What's happening here?
Right.
And the cameras were focusing on one person or another. And
Right.
as I recall, they loved you. And then
They did.
then we
I was there in the front, like I was the third one back, I think.
yeah,
Or something
right
like
on the sideline.
something like that.
Yeah,
I was in one of the
the coil.
first 3 people go
Oh,
to
okay.
uncoil.
Okay, so we marched into the we finally started marching, and we spelled our O and H. And the coolest thing was in the last O, when it got time for the eye dotter to come out, he was led by the drum major. And I'm standing right there on the sideline directing.
Right.
And I'm right underneath, right in front of the ladder that the OSU director is on. And I see the drum major come out, followed by Boniface and Billy.
Right.
And he strikes the ground where one of them is going to stand. And literally,
Cool.
it's as the black pieces of tire pieces that are in the what do you call it? AstroTurf.
Right.
He strikes that, and it's like magic. This poof comes up right where he strikes, and the Boniface or Billy take that spot, and right in timing with the OSU's bow, members bow. They bow, and it is just magical. And the stadium is going wild, and they're on the big screen, and it said they said it was the greatest applause they'd ever had for eye dotters.
And we were still are, as far as my knowledge goes, the only high school marching band to ever march with them on field, correct?
That's as far as I understand. That's correct.
We got some really cool experiences.
And the neat thing is, we might get to do that again next year.
Awesome.
We have been, the current director said he would like to have us do that. So now he's got to go through the process of getting it approved.
Right.
But it's been approached.
Cool.
Yes.
That'll be amazing.
It will.
For this next generation of marching band members. That was 13.
Uh-huh.
I believe the next thing was the Memorial Day parade in
Washington, D.C.
I thought so.
Yeah.
That was 15.
Yes.
That was your last?
Yeah, that was. I retired 4 days later.
That must have been 14-15 school year then.
Yes.
I thought so.
It was my swan song.
That was an amazing trip.
It was.
They all run together after a while. And that's what they're doing now. So, we were in that parade. That was how long?
It wasn't even a mile. It was just
short
of a mile. It wasn't a long parade.
We did. What else did we do there?
We went to the Air Force Memorial where we performed our halftime show, and people kept saying to me, "You guys are really special because they don't allow anybody on the grass here."
I remember hearing that.
Yeah, but we performed our halftime show there. We were supposed to perform it at a retirement home,
right?
And for veterans, but they had a number of deaths that week, and they just weren't up to the.
I wouldn't want to be there either.
It just wasn't the right time. So they arranged for us to perform at the Air Force Memorial, which was pretty cool. It's a beautiful place with overlooking the city, and you've got those cool arches there, the wing type of memorial. And so it was really cool to do that. We got to practice for that at the National Cathedral, which looks right out of Harry Potter.
Right.
And there was a service going on, so we couldn't go in and look there, but it was really cool to be on the grounds. And we ran into people we knew there. What are the odds? And it's
a small world.
Yeah.
It's a very small world.
We got to ride on the subway. We went to Arlington Cemetery, and we watched a changing of the guards there, which was very moving.
It's always moving. I've been there 2 or 3 times with OSSB because we did that trip my 8th grade year.
Ah, yes.
I don't remember I think that was the outreach.
I think so.
Or up close or something like that. I forget what it was called.
Mm-hmm.
But they took, I think, the entire high school.
Yes. Yes. They wanted you guys to have experience in the big city wanted you to see Washington, D.C.
And ride the subway.
On the subway.
Right.
Yeah.
So that trip was amazing, as they all are.
Uh-huh.
Was there anything in 15-16 school year?
Well, I had retired by then, but I came up and helped.
Right.
Yes. We went to Chicago.
Oh, yeah, we did.
For the 100th anniversary of the
International
Lions Club. Yeah, parade. So that was incredible because there were so many, it being the 100th anniversary, there were so many more countries represented.
Right.
And we just had a huge crowd watching us. And we got to see Chicago. And the fun thing after the parade, we had lots of lapel pins to trade with other bands or units in the parade. And the fun thing was, if they didn't have a lapel pin, like the Japanese parade people, they just gave us the shirts off their back. So that was our memento. It was really neat to go around. I went around with Caden Hooks, and we would give these, make these trades. And at one point, someone asked if he could bless Caden, and Caden said yes, that'd be fine. And so he did. He right there. He prayed for Caden.
Aw, cool.
It was a wonderful experience.
And then we've got a big trip coming up here at the end of December, beginning of January.
We do.
And do we want to talk a little bit about that, or is it still kind of hush-hush?
No. Let's talk about it.
We are going to the Outback Bowl in
Tampa, Florida.
I knew it was somewhere in Florida. I was going to say Orlando.
Well, we started in Orlando, but we end up in Tampa.
I'm sure you know more about the trip than I do because I haven't been getting emails for some reason, but well.
This is what we're going to do. We leave on the 28th, and we're taking 18 members and the requisite marching assistants, and we are traveling to overnight. We're leaving at 2 o'clock on the 28th, and we arrive in Orlando, Florida at 10 o'clock in the morning on the 29th, and we spend the day at Disney World just having fun. Which
awesome.
Yes. No worries. We've been to Disney World before, well, actually Disneyland, and on the Rose Parade trip.
I was going to say.
But it was all business.
Right.
We did.
Wasn't anything fun.
Well, we did have fun because we did these jazz workshops, and we performed there.
Right.
We performed there. I remember when we performed there, it was not only the band, but a lot of the members were in the choir, so we did a few choir numbers as well.
Cool.
And
representing both halves of the music department.
Yeah. and John Waters was the director of the OSU band, and they were out there performing at Disney World. And after our choir sang I'll Make a Difference, we had 4 soloists: Macy McLean, Misty Hatcher, trombone player, Sam Shepard, and the other trombone player.
Was that Julian Brooks?
Julian Brooks, yes. And they were our soloists. And they're just awesome, incredible soloists. And that was our last number. And John Waters just came up to me bawling. He could not talk for bawling. And he just hugged me and cried because it was such a moving song. And that's what he was helping us do in all of his support, was helping us to make a difference.
Which we did.
Yes.
And we still do.
So that trip at Disneyland, we didn't get to
enjoy
the rides or anything like that.
Anything
but this trip, we're spending the day at Disney World.
Awesome.
And then that night we go to Tampa to our hotel. And the next day we spend it at the beach. We get to kind of recover from our lack of sleep.
Awesome. And then what else do we have going on?
Well, there is a marching band festival in at Jefferson High School in
She brought her notes.
Tampa, and that is, I think, at 7:30 on. I have to look.
Helps to bring notes, doesn't it?
7:30. Yeah, 7:30 p.m. December 30th. It's the Outback Bowl Marching Band competition.
Cool.
And at Jefferson High School. And then we're marching on New Year's Eve in the National Outback Bowl New Year's Eve Parade in Ybor City. I think that's how you pronounce it. It's Ybor.
I was going to say, I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm not from Florida. I've never been.
We have to be there at 3 p.m. I'm not sure what time the parade starts.
Aha.
So, and then that night we get to spend the New Year's Eve at Disney World. Busch Gardens.
Awesome.
And then the next day is the performance in the Outback Bowl halftime show.
Cool. And that will be televised?
It will be televised. I don't know if the halftime show will end up on TV, but it seems to me that they often do that for these bowl games. So we'll be performing with the other bands. We've learned our two pieces. One is the opener, and the other one is classic rock medley. And we performed our classic rock medley in the holiday concert.
Cool. Which I didn't, unfortunately, make it to this year. How did that go?
It was wonderful. The theme was winter. There was a lot of songs about snow. A lot of clever pieces that were performed, and the multiple disability classes, or I guess they're now called developmental disability, they did a number of pieces with the bells, and then one piece where they rocked out with the drum set, and it was a lot of fun. And
they never cease to amaze me.
Elementary kids did not only did they sing these wonderful songs by themselves or in small groups and in large groups, they also played instruments, and they did a super job playing Jolly Old St. Nicholas, and these are not easy pieces that they played. And they joined the junior high band to play a piece. Then the junior high band did a piece, and the high school the high school band joined them, and we just had this. They just did a super job playing all their songs, and
which they always do.
I ended up having to turn pages for one student because by the time you blew up his music to where he could read it,
was
and see it,
gigantic.
Yeah, he had like 12 pages of music.
I've been there, done that.
You can't play the clarinet and turn at the same time very easily.
Can't play the trumpet and turn at the same time either.
Right.
Well, you can, but it's tricky.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that we have going on?
Well, getting ready for this thing, and then the rest of the school year, I don't know what Miss Johnson's got up
her sleeves.
Her sleeve for the rest of the school year, but the students are reading music really well. We're still using solfege like I did way back when, and it works well in our situation. And
that's fixed solfege, right?
Right, where the sound B flat is always do, no matter what instrument is playing it. That sound is do, and that makes it so much easier to teach everyone in a mass setting.
Right, makes sense.
I know that we're hoping to go to London, England.
So that's
sometime
still
in the future. That's
on the table.
When we wanted to do it before, the administration just never signed that note saying that they backed us.
I was going to say,
because I'm not sure if that was deliberate or if it was just they didn't, it just got pushed to the side or something.
Right, because I know we were planning on going no, it was, forget when it was. What year was that? That they wanted us to go the first time?
I think it was around 2014, something like that. They've been after us for years, and or it could have been 2016, but
might have been 16 because it was towards the end of my tenure.
Okay, so it probably was after the National Memorial Day Parade then, but we really wanted to do it, and we just couldn't get the process started. But this time, the administration is amenable to it, and so it's on the table. It's not a definite. It's just
there for...
It's a possibility. So we are looking at that possibility. And the other big news is, I believe it was Matt Cromer who started a Facebook comment of wanting to know if we could ever get the chimes back at OSSB, or was that you? Or a combination of the two?
It could have been a combination of the two, because I remember hearing them chime before they started construction on the new building, or quote unquote new building that's falling apart already. But we'll digress. We'll let that go. But yeah, I think it was a mixture of the two between us.
Well, I did some research on the cost of this, and I gave that research to Seal Perano, who had asked for it. She was responding to these requests.
Right.
And she took it to the superintendent, and I got word at the holiday concert that they're planning on doing it.
That makes me so happy.
Yes.
Because that just...
For so many years, it was the essence of OSSB.
Right? And now hopefully it'll be the essence of OSSB again. Now, will it be the bell tower of the quote-unquote original or old building, or will it be the bell tower, or if you want to call it that, bell tower of the new building?
Yeah, they did build a bell tower on purpose because they wanted to have these bells back. Or
it'll be mixture of the both.
It's going to be in the new building. And,
makes sense.
Well, that's, where we are. And there will be a keyboard, just like there was in the old, so that students can record music or play it live as the bells play. And it will have the usual recorded music for the holidays or for every day. And and they'll play at the times that it used to play. So the students will once again hear the beloved bells.
Awesome. Trying to think. You've taught at a regular public school, correct?
Correct. Well, yes, I taught at Circleville Junior High School for 3 years, and that was vocal music and general music.
Thought so.
And then I took many years off when I raised my family, and then I taught at Marburn Academy for students with learning disabilities, and that was vocal and general music. Well, just general music, really.
Right. And then you came to OSSB.
OSSB, where I did it all.
So how much harder is it transferring from, say, public school to developmental disability or teaching that? I know it's got to be different.
It is different.
Or
I
trickier.
Didn't know, I can remember.
Because there's some obstacles there.
It's totally different because I'm teaching in a different way, because you can't say, everybody take out your books and look at page whatever.
Right.
Because the music books were not in Braille.
Right.
And or large print for that matter. So I had to do things auditorily and more experience oriented rather than I guess reading oriented. And they'd have a Braille production, so I would have some articles and that I wanted to pull in. I could
Right.
have those brailled, and we could do that. But I was very, very nervous, and I remember it was November of my first year, and I had been teaching the 5th and 6th grade class,
Right.
and Ernie Turner was in that class.
I remember Ernie.
Yeah, he still comes and helps at the blind school.
Yep, I've seen him around.
So I just felt like, when is this class going to be over? Because I just felt like I wasn't engaging. This was not the kind of lesson I wanted to teach.
Right.
I felt like I was thinking, when is this going to be over? As much as the students were thinking, when is this going to be over? It just wasn't the fun, entertaining, or just engaging music class that I wanted it to be. And
Right.
the bell rang, and the kids just left the room. And I was standing at the door, and Ernie Turner walked past me, and he got a few feet away, and he turned back, and he said, "Mrs. Agler, can I give you a hug?" And I said, "Yes." And I thought, after all that, I'm all right. They're going to be nice to me, no matter how bad I am. I'm
Right.
okay here. And that was my turning point. That's where I finally felt like I belonged, and I was going to be okay, and I'd figure it out, and they'd help me.
Right. Now, you moved the music room from way back in the elementary wing to what was, when you got there, the meeting room behind the stage.
Yeah.
Was that the first year you got there, or the?
It was. It was the first year. They were wanting to. Some of the teachers were wanting to turn that big room into cubbies for offices.
Aha.
And Mr. Markham said, if you want to protect that room for your
Space.
space, you need that whenever you put on a performance. You've got to use that space.
Because
right
it's
behind the
a
stage.
lot easier than dragging everything up from the other end of the building.
And you've got to prep the people before they get on stage in
Right.
that space. And so he said, you really need to move up into that room. And I said, oh, but my room where it is so picturesque. I look out and the snow is falling on this rock wall and the pine trees and the courtyard there. And it had
Right.
low windows and it's so pretty down here. And he said, but you need to move up there. So I moved up there, and the windows are higher, but you can still see the snowfall.
Right.
There
And it's
aren't
got
any
those
pine trees out there, but
big
it's
block windows up high to let sunlight
really
in.
high. Yes. So I learned to love that room just as much, and it was easier for band because
Didn't have as far
the
to go.
storage room there was built for the band instruments, and the
Right.
storage room in the former music room was not at all. So it was much easier to teach my instrumental music in that setting. So it worked out just fine.
Right. And the former music room had a stage, as to where the band room does not, or did not, still doesn't.
Right, but it has the stage was really tiny in
Right.
the first music room, and it was one of those gymatorium type of things, an elementary gym with a little tiny stage to it. So
Right.
it was better to have the big stage. And when we had band camp, we could just move the percussion onto the stage to practice.
Which we did quite a bit.
Yeah. And there were 7 practice rooms in the area around the music room. So we
Originally
could break
there
off into
were
those.
Right. Originally there were 24, if I'm not mistaken. Because where the tech room is
Oh, really?
was the piano tuning lab.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Way back when the building was built.
Wow. So they had more rooms in there.
Yep.
Wow.
Which are now storage, but
Uh-huh.
what are you going to do? Can't win them all. Let's see. Is there anything else that I'm missing that you'd like to touch on?
Well, you're missing Mr. Kelly.
True. He was a good part of the band for almost, well,
2006 through 2012 or 13.
Something like that. Good portion of, a little bit of my time in the band.
And then he retired from it in, I think it was 2013. It was. And then it was me and Miss Johnson, 2013 through 2015. And now it's Miss Johnson. And of course, Jeff Schneider, who came to us in 2008, I think it was. He's a retired band director from Bexley High School. And he volunteered
one more time.
his service. Yes, Mr. One More Time. So he was a marching assistant his first year, but his second year he said, I was serious when I said I'd be glad to do anything you want.
Right.
And so the last marching drill that I designed was the one that we did at Pasadena with our Stevie Wonder show. And the next year I said, go for it. And so he's been designing our marching drill ever since. And it's always a challenge because coming up to band camp, you'll get all these applications in and all these people are coming. And then band camp happens and all of a sudden,
you get half of them.
Well, not half. You can get all but 3. So
right.
now you've got to redesign your show. So because those 3, you're using every single marcher you have.
Right.
And it makes a difference. so
yes, it
oftentimes
does.
During band camp, he's redesigning the show.
And reworking it. Right.
Yeah, because of things that happen. So he's been a wonderful addition to the show, and to our organization, and he still is designing our drill, and he's our field coach. He teaches us the drill.
Yes, he does. He was... We all hated him for One More Time. I'm sure they still don't like him.
Oh, he wears his One More Time with the infinity sign on it. Always on Thursday of band camp. That's our warning. It's going to be one more time to infinity.
Right. One more time doesn't mean one more time with him.
Well, it's interesting because when you say one more time to a student with autism,
they think one more time.
One more time. And so it can be upsetting to them.
Can be upsetting to a lot of people, autistic or not.
So we just have to tell them up front, you have to understand one more time does not mean one more time.
Right. Means 10 more times or 15 more times. Right. Forget. Back when the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge was going on, I got the honor of dumping a bucket of ice on you.
You did.
I
was astounded at how cold it was.
Well, it sat there and melted in, so we've had some great times.
We have.
And we'll have some many more.
That's right.
All right. I think that will do it for this episode. Join us next week for our next episode. Guest, I have no clue who's going to be on next week, so stay tuned for that surprise.
Thanks for joining us this week on OSSB Inside and Out. Make sure to follow us on social media on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter by searching for OSSB Inside and Out Podcast. Make sure you don't miss any future episodes. You can find us on all the major podcast platforms. Thank you for listening.